Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for your time this afternoon. I am filling in for Blessed Soga. My name is Kojo Yankson. Public universities are under intense fire for increasing school fees beyond the rate approved by Parliament. The Fees and Charges Act passed by Parliament approved a 15% increase in schools' fees. But some schools, including the University of Ghana, are charging close to 40%. In the University of Ghana, for instance, continuing Bachelor of Arts students paid 1,098 Ghana cedis, but will be paying 1,524 Ghana cedis for this academic year. The Ghana Tertiary Education Commission has waded into the matter. We're going to hear from them shortly, but first, we will take you live to the city campus of the University of Ghana, where the National Union of Ghana Students have been holding a news conference on the matter.
The media on issues pertinent and concerning to the student front. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all on behalf of the students of this country. Pardon me, we may not have time for long pleasantries. We will deliver the message on behalf of our colleagues receiving education in various public tertiary institutions who are faced with the harsh realities of an insensitive system. What we have on our hands is a decision by some institutional leaders to blatantly disregard our laws and the Parliament of Ghana. Colleagues, our advocacy against increase in fees started on the 3rd of November 2022, where we visited the President of the Republic of Ghana. From that time till date, at all levels, we have pursued dialogue and a consistent appeal to authorities with the hope that stakeholders will be sensitive to the conditions of students in these economic challenges. Beyond the meeting with the President, we wrote a follow-up memo through the Minister for Education to the President on the 23rd of November 2022. To further our advocacy, we went on to write to the Parliamentary Select Committee on Education on the 1st of December 2022. These are only but a few of the engagements, both in meetings and letters, by both the National Union of Ghana Students and our various blocs in ensuring our pleas are heard. Ladies and gentlemen, on the 16th of November 2022, we received a letter from the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission indicating a parliamentary approval for a maximum threshold of 15% for academic facility user fee, and the same for the residential facility user fee. For the avoidance of doubt, the provisions of Fees and Charges Act, Miscellaneous Provisions, Act 2022, Act 1080, meant that institutions cannot increase any forms of fees beyond 15% of the 2021-2022 academic year in charging for the 2022-2023 academic year. I repeat that part again. For the avoidance of doubt, the provisions of the Fees and Charges Act 2022, Act 1080, means that institutions cannot charge beyond 15% of the 2021-2022 academic fees in charging the 2022-2023 fees. Regardless of this provision by Parliament, it was clear that some management of various institutions were still charging beyond the approved threshold. We went on to meet the leadership of the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission on the 20th of December 2022, with GTEC writing again to institutions on 22nd December 2022, reminding them of the need to comply with the parliamentary provision. We also issued a statement calling for the compliance to the parliamentary provisions on the 23rd of December 2022. Colleagues, I have run you through some of our engagements so you can appreciate the patience and commitment to solutions through dialogue and boardroom. But at the end of our cooperation, we are still here with a number of public institutions glaringly disregarding the Parliament of Ghana. Unfortunately, laying the bed for illegalities is not a precedent that must be set by leaders of institutions, especially in the face of growing unrest and agitations at the various levels of student front. Let me state this. The student front is unhappy about the levels of fees in this country And that is very straightforward. We are unhappy. To be precise, I'll give you an overview of some institutions who are blatantly flouting the provisions of Parliament. We had promised you in our earlier statements that at some point in time, we would name and shame institutions disregarding and disobeying the system. It is our promise, and we are going to fulfill it. 1, and please take keen notice of these ones. The University of Ghana has increased the academic facility user fee for some departments well over 40%. And to make matters worse, has increased residential facility user fee to about 70%, in some situations 100%. Right here at the medical school, University of Ghana has increased residential facility user fee up to 100%. I am referring to Professor Nana Abba Amphos University of Ghana, which is leading the illegalities. We have nothing against anybody, but the students of Ghana must be protected. Dear Professor Mrs. Rita Akosua-Dixon, our attention has been brought to the how to believe fees increment of over 90% in AFUF and 100% in RFEUF in your institution. This is not only hard to believe, but very worrying to be coming from the university like Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. This is directly to Professor Rita Dixon. Madam Professor, you have no right to charge students in excess of the 15%. This we must say, and we must say truth to power. UCC is also deeply involved with some increments crossing 25%. As we speak, UCC Faculty of Social Science has increased its fees at a rate of 27%. UMAT is also doing same with increment as high as 40%. 5. The University of Education, the school for my Secretary of Education, is also doing same by charging first years in an increment of up to 40%. Whilst we await the release for continuing students, it is unfortunate to note that graduate fees in some instances goes up to 40%. And I will make a specific example with the MPhil for special education being raised up to 40%. Amstead, that is Apia Akentin Apia Minka School for University for Development, right? Skills Development. Under the guise of provisional fees, have increased fees up to 21%. We will not wait for them to start collecting the fees like Legon is doing before we come out to cry. Provisional or non-provisional, reverse it. University of Energy and Natural Resources are also deeply involved in the illegalities with fees, some going up to 30%. I mean 30%. And they give the excuse that
these are some of the details coming to us from the press conference held by NUGS in reaction to increases in fees being charged to students in the major universities of Ghana. These state-controlled universities are mandated by law to charge no more than 15% increase on the 2021-2022 academic year fees. But as it turns out, universities including University of Ghana, KNUST, University of Education Winneba, are cited by NUGS to have charged up to and over 40% increase on last academic year's fees. University of Cape Coast and others have been cited for charging 27% increase and up to 30% in other institutions. Latif Idris, my colleague, is there at the press conference. Let's get some more background and color from you, Latif. What exactly appears to be the demand of NUGS in light of their revelations?
We are all involved. We are all involved.
Latif, if you can hear us, talk us through the demands being made by the students at this press conference.
Okay, so Kojo, thank you for the opportunity now. So I'm joined by the president of NUGS. And I must say that it's been a session of naming and shaming if you like, some of the institutions that are breaching the parliamentary directive on fee charges, which was pegged at 15% and not exceeding 15%, I must say. The president is here, so I wouldn't like to take the wind out of his sail, and I'm moving straight to you. You're welcome to join us.
Thank you very much, sir.
Before we go into the details, as you rightly laid out here, tell us about the level of engagement you had with these authorities before coming public.
Okay, so first of all, we have been very engaging and dialogue-oriented. If you look at our first meeting with the President of the Republic on the 3rd of November, where we placed the formal request for the very first time, even before fees came out, we had reported to the President that this is the anticipation we have in the system. We followed up with a memo through the Minister of Education on the 23rd of November to the President again. We wrote on the 1st of December to the Parliamentary Select Committee on Education. Then we met the Parliamentary Select Committee on Education. We met the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission. It tells you the level of we've met. As I speak to you, we are still involved in a lot of these conversations. But what do we see? Institutions are still blatantly disregarding the laws. The University of Ghana, Professor Amfo School, is still blatantly disregarding the law, charging students 94%. What else do we need to do? As I speak to you, GTEC has written 2 letters to our various vice chancellors. 2 letters, one dated on the 16th of December, one dated 22nd of December, all calling on the institutions to comply. At least, if you do not respect the student front, respect the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission. And what do we have? Now, they employ various gymnastics. A typical example is the University of Energy and Natural Resources. Now, they say they've charged academic facilities a fee at a threshold, but other charges like departmental fees, block fees, and what have you, can go up to 94%. Meanwhile, the Fees and Charges Act is very clear. University of Energy and Natural Resources cannot charge beyond 15% in all forms of fees because it is Act 1080. It is very clear. Fees and Charges Act. It is not Academic Facilities Fees and Charges Act. That we must rehash and rehash. And that is why we have the problem. That nobody wants to listen to the students unless there is a route. Nobody thinks it is important unless there is a route.
Is that what we are looking at if the institutions continue to disregard the directive by Parliament?
I think that in a statement, I mentioned that what we won't be able to say today is our next line of action. But what we will be able to say is that we'll pursue every means reasonable and logical to ensure the fees are reversed. Not just because of the students, but because of the integrity that we need to bestow on institutions of our state. Institutions of our state, such as the Parliament of Ghana, is the apex of law. And the least you can do as a vice chancellor or director of finance is to give some level of respect and courtesy to the laws of our country, because it is the same law that mandates you and give you the office you find yourself in.
At the leadership level, I'm talking about NUGS. Have you been given any explanation as to why these institutions are doing what they are doing?
The point still remains that you can't even give explanations. First of all, we've not been given explanations. 2, you can't give explanations. Have we allowed the armed robbers of this country to give explanations? Have we ever allowed rapists to give explanations? Do you know why we don't allow them? Laws are laws. So you can't tell me that I have challenges, my mom is sick, I can go and rob, and because I have an excuse, I'll give explanation. That's the logic we are faced with. So first of all, there's not been any explanation. 2, there must not be any explanation. We must not breed grounds for people to give explanation to illegalities. And that is the problem we have. So explanations, why?
You mentioned one institution. I want you to tell us the institutions that are blatantly disregarding this directive.
Let me get my documents. Let me run you through. But offered, let me give you some. University of Health and Allied Sciences have, in some instances, gone up to 65%. Professor Lydia Aziato's institution is what I'm talking about. That is where we are now. University of Cape Coast, at some point in time, have increased beyond 20%. University of Energy, going beyond 30% in some instances. KNUST, academic facility user fee, 30, 90, and residential, 100%. At this point, what should we do again?
So you are making a call to well-meaning Ghanaians and the clergy. What exactly do you want them to do in this instance?
Speak up. Speak up in the face of illegalities. When it is the matters of students, we should remember that it concerns the future of this country. Education must not be made to be a preserve of only the rich. Education must be protected in its all entirety. Education must be something that becomes a catalyst to building this country. How do we build this country when education is so expensive that and so built in a way that persons can decide to run it anyway, anyhow, and have explanations? Explanations. Can we take explanations from armed robbers?
All right, thank you very much. So that's the president of NUGS making it clear on this particular subject of fees that, according to NUGS, some of the institutions are blatantly disregarding the directive by Parliament not to exceed the 15% increments. But he listed some of the institutions that are currently doing directly opposite and otherwise, and they are calling on the clergy and the well-meaning Ghanaians to speak up so we do not end up putting undue pressure on some of these students who cannot afford the increments, some of which have gone up to 100 and beyond 90% increments. Kojo.
Lateef, thank you very much for those insightful details. Now, the story keeps evolving. If you're a student or a parent concerned by these developments, we would love to hear from you. Please contact us on the number which will be displayed on the screen shortly. We'd love to hear from you. Now, the story evolves. Kwekwa Asante, my colleague, joins me with a letter that Joy News has intercepted from GTech addressed to the public universities, instructing them to stick to the approved fees. Kweku, if you have that letter with you, we'd love to know what it says. All right, now we're going to get Kwekwa Asante to share the details of that letter shortly, but the details coming through are quite worrying. The major universities in this country have all been cited by NUGS for overcharging on fees. Kwekwa Asante is available now, I believe. Now, Kweku, what exactly does this letter from the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission say?
This letter signed by the Director General himself, Professor Salifu, acknowledges that the public universities are doing this and it is warning them to revert to the 15% that has been approved by.
Right, we are going to clean up that connection and find out exactly what the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission has written to the heads of tertiary institutions here in Ghana. As we understand, they are calling for an adherence to the legally stipulated fees. Quickly, if you can hear me, I'd love for you to pick up where you left off.
Right, so this letter says that the release of this letter, the Tertiary Education Commission has received numerous petitions from students and other adults about these alleged charging fees in excess of the amount. It says this is to kindly remind all public tertiary education institutions to abide strictly by the approval given. Any increases above the approved rates shall be in 2022 and likely to attract. We further kindly advise management of these institutions to consider accepting 50% down payment. So this is a letter from the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission warning that there will be sanctions from Parliament if these universities continue to charge in excess of what has been approved by Parliament.
Now, this is interesting. I mean, there seems to be such a widespread violation of the law, but is this something that the universities seem to be doing in unison, or is it a coincidence that all of them happen to have increased their rates at the same time beyond what the law allows? Are there any indications coming through of how this happened?
But so if you look at the data, public universities have been charging the same fees for a number of years now because they have not been able to get the approval of Parliament to charge new fees. And so when they got a 15% approval, our sources say that the public universities were not happy with the rate that have been approved. But instead of petitioning the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission to go to the Education Ministry to try and work around this and review this, the public universities, in unison, like you said, have decided to go beyond this 15%. Indeed, if you look at the data we have, almost all public tertiary universities are charging beyond the 15% that Parliament has approved. It is not clear that Vice Chancellor Ghana decided to hold a meeting to agree that let's go beyond what Parliament has approved. But it seems to be that almost all public tertiary institutions are charging beyond what Parliament approved.
Of course, Joy News has been making frantic efforts to reach the Vice Chancellors Association of Ghana. We are as yet unable to hear back from them. They have not responded to our calls for comment. We will continue to do so, and we will attempt to bring you some information on that.